Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes, and despite all feminist odds, but consistent with the real world, I haven't been raped yet. Hi, I'm Diana Davison, and I promised last week I'd tell you why Linda Redgrave cried all the way home in the cab from Jian Ghomeshi's house. For anyone just tuning in, I'm talking about Jian Ghomeshi, former CBC radio host, who was falsely accused of sexual assault by a multitude of women and acquitted of all charges in March 2016. There was fury that Jian didn't have to take the stand and testify at his trial, but it would be wrong to think that his version of events wasn't told during the trial. I think it's quite obvious what happened. So Linda Redgrave, the first complainant in the trial, had the publication ban lifted on her name after the trial so that she could promote her new business idea, a website called ComingForward. If Linda tries to tell you that she got nothing out of making sexual assault accusations against Ghomeshi, she's really just complaining that she doesn't have more followers on Twitter. I'd follow her, but she has me blocked. Linda's tall tale about her encounters with Jian started with the claims that Jian was smitten with her from the moment they met. She drove through sleet and snow to attend his show Play 3 times before their final meeting. The first time, she managed to get invited out for a drink afterwards and stood there smiling, trying to look pretty, while Jian talked to other, more interesting people, before offering to drive her to her car. The second time, he didn't speak to her at all, and she was very disappointed, but ignored her friend's advice to give up on him. She drove through a serious snowstorm to see him one more time, and brought a wingman along with her to help her get and keep Jian's attention. Linda claimed that this third visit was a girls' night out, and though she wanted to see Jian, she was mostly just going out to have fun with her girlfriend. In trial, Marie Hennen brings up an awkward fact from the police statements given by Linda's friend. And what you told Mr. Callahan, that's the prosecutor, this morning, was that the purpose of attending the third episode was that it was going to be a girls' night out. A fun night out, yeah. And that you wanted Ms. Warhurst to come back to Mr. Ghomeshi's home with you, is that right? That's right, we were all together. So I take it you would disagree if Miss Warhurst were to say that she understood that what was planned was a romantic evening between you and Mr. Ghomeshi. Does that not accord with your recollection of her saying that? Hennen says that it was a romantic evening, that it wasn't going to be a girls' night out at all. It was going to be, well, we didn't discuss it. Again, Miss Redgrave, you're going to have to let me finish my questions so the court reporter can get down what I'm saying and also fairly get your answer down, all right? Is your recollection that you expected a romantic evening that night with Mr. Ghomeshi? Linda says, I hadn't expected anything, no. Hennen says, all right, so if that's Ms. Warhurst's recollection, that that's what you were anticipating, that it wasn't a girls' night out at all, that's not consistent with what you recall. It's very clear that Linda's friend did her job well. Jian ended up interviewing Warhurst on the show. They talked about eBay. Jian enjoyed the conversation so much, he talked to her friend at the end of the show and invited both of them back to his house. This was wildly more successful than any of Linda's previous attempts to get alone with Jian, and her friend got them invited all the way back to his house before she bailed and left them alone, as per the plan. So think about this. Jian invites the entertaining friend and gets stuck with Linda. But again, Jian is too nice and continues on with the invite, getting stuck with Linda in his home. It's clear from Linda's answer to Callahan, the prosecutor, that Linda was again just standing there smiling, trying to look pretty and not contributing to the conversation. And what happened at the end of the taping? He asks her. Well, at the end of the taping, Veronica and Jian and I decided to go to that pub across the street. It was really bad weather, so we all went over there. And I don't remember what I ordered that time, but he was chatting up Veronica, talking about her being a nurse, and we were having fun. We were having a good time. You'll notice Jian was not chatting up Linda, asking her about her career or about her life. He was interested in Linda's friend. Well played, Linda's friend. Remember the last time Linda had gone to see Jian, he expressed no interest in her. Linda's other friend made that quite clear. Linda had been crushed at the lack of interest after the second show that she went to. Then, like magic, she brings a friend capable of getting Jian's attention, and it was not Linda Jian was inviting back to his home. He just got stuck with her because that was their plan from the start. They set him up. So how did that go for Linda? What happens when you trick a guy into inviting you to his house? Well, you end up leaving there crying. I'm going to skip to day 2 of the trial, the final day of Linda's testimony, where Marie Henein narrows in on what Linda was doing while she was at Jian's house. In the original story, Linda tells police that she was there and they were on the couch and off the couch, and she was doing some yoga moves at one point, and Jian was getting annoyed. At no point does Linda tell police that they were kissing, because they weren't. Linda adds that by the time she gets to court. Marie Henein: you, in addition to adding this new memory of kissing, which you didn't tell the police, were also doing something else at that house that night, right? What, my yoga moves? Your yoga moves. Right. This was not a yoga class, was it? No. No. And so you're there, so let's get some context now. You've told us that you go to this house, right? With the snowstorm, right? Yes? Yes. And you've now added that there's sensuous kisses on 2 occasions, right? Correct. One while you're sitting on the couch, right? Right. And one while you're standing up, right. And that is the one that occurs just before the incident you've described, right? Right. And when Mr. Callahan was asking you questions about where you were sitting in the house and the couch, you say to him you were getting up and down, right? Yeah. But you weren't just getting up and down. What you told the police is, you're out doing yoga moves. Really, not for long. What sort of moves were you making or doing? I don't remember. Don't recall. Did you do 1 or 2? Can you help us out with? I remember 1. That's all I remember. 1. What was the 1? I can't do it now. Well, I'm not asking you to do a yoga move in court, Ms. Redgrave. Why don't you describe it in words? Redgrave says, you balance on a leg. Henein says, that's the yoga move that you were doing. Yeah, and lean forward. I forgot what it's called. And lean forward. Were there other moves you were doing? I don't remember. That's the only one I remember. You were getting up and down, doing something. Not for long, yes. So do we now have the sequence that it is a kiss on the couch, doing yoga moves of some sort, right? Yes? Yes. And you're doing that. You're sitting up and down, up and down. Is that what's happening? Yes. Then you're kissing again? Yes. And you can't tell us, or couldn't tell the police, how you got to the ground. But you've given a description to this court, right? Right. All right. You now, I'm going to suggest to you, also recall that he went and got your coat before you left, right? Yes. All right. That's something that's new as well, right? Not to me. You didn't tell the police about that. I told you in my police statement I was nervous. I had to start remembering things that I didn't really want to remember this. Henein says, the kooky yoga moves, to use your word, that you were telling the police about, you told them were annoying, Mr. Ghomeshi. I remember him looking annoyed, or I can't explain it. It was just like, what are you doing? Sorry? He was looking, he had a look on his face like, what are you doing? It was, to use your words, bothering him. It looks like it. It wasn't going well. Well, it wasn't. He was getting annoyed with you. No. He wasn't. No, I think that's exaggerating it. It just had a look like, what are you doing? All right. And what you tell the police is that at the end of this, he tells you to leave. He did. No, he said, you should go now. So I'm going to ask you to do something. Think about this sequence of events and tell me if it makes sense. Linda has been pursuing Jian. She goes to see him for the first time at play, reminds him who she is, and gets invited over for a drink. She has ginger ale and smiles like an idiot, adding nothing to the conversation. Jian says he's going home and offers to drive her to her car because, well, she's still standing there smiling at him and laughing at his jokes. She's brought nothing to the conversation all night. He drives her to her car. She goes to a second episode fairly quickly, and he ignores her because, well, she's not very good at conversation, and he's surrounded by people who want to talk to him. She works herself up for a third visit after great disappointment and brings a more dynamic friend with her. The friend pours on the charm, gets Jian engaged in fun conversation, and even contributes to the live taping of the show as an interviewee. Jian is interested in continuing his chat with Linda's friend and invites them both back to his house because there's a bad storm going on. The friend does her duty, and bails. Jian gets stuck with Linda. Linda, as we know, is not very good with the chit-chat and keeps getting up from the couch, wandering around looking at his stuff. She starts pulling yoga moves in an attempt to show off her physical fitness. But Jian has no sexual interest in her and gets pissed off, because why is this boring chick doing yoga moves in his living room? He gets her coat and tells her she should leave. Calls her a cab. Linda, embarrassed, "What was I thinking doing yoga moves? He must think I'm a moron. How could I be such an idiot? He must hate me," cries all the way back to her friend's house. Not only did she leave her 2 children in Woodbridge to try and get laid, she arranged to stay out all night. She was just hoping it would be in Jian's bed, not on her friend's couch. Epic fail. She tries to email Jian a year later, calling him playboy, making stupid remarks about snowblowing in the nude, and doesn't hear back from him. A few months later, she sends him a photoshopped picture of herself in a string bikini, but it gets no response. That's how stupid Linda's yoga moves were, and how little interest Jian had in her attempts to turn him on. Nothing. If Veronica had sent him a picture, well, who knows? At least Jian actually liked her. So, how did Linda create her story? Well, she read the Toronto Star on October 26th and tried to match allegations already published. The original article in the Star said, in one woman's case, she visited Ghomeshi at his Toronto home and alleges as soon as she walked into the house, he suddenly struck her hard with his open hand, then continued to hit her and choked her. The woman alleges Ghomeshi repeatedly beat her about the head and choked her. They also published, "I thought this meant he would want to pull my hair and have rough sex. He reassured me that I wouldn't be forced. Later, he attacked me, choked me, hit me like I didn't know men hit women. I submitted." So, Linda claims that, out of the blue, Ghomeshi pulled her hair really, really, really hard, and that when she went to his house later, he suddenly grabbed her hair, forced her to her knees, and punched her in the head. Out of the blue, just suddenly. After which he tells her to leave. She realized later that he should probably have been kissing her to make more sense of her story, so she adds that in after explicitly telling media that it was out of the blue, for no apparent reason, and with no lead-up. By telling you where Linda got her story, I don't want to lend any credibility to the stories she copied. As previously covered, Linda says the same journalist, Kevin Donovan, from whom Linda was stealing stories, she says he twisted her words when he published it. The third complainant also said that Mr. Donovan outright fabricated quotes from her, inserting all the elements of assault. So Kevin Donovan, according to the women he interviewed, is making up allegations and then reporting them over and over as women come forward and quote his own fabricated stories back to him. Mr. Donovan actually interfered with what should have been a police investigation. If the police had been investigating and calling for more reports, they would not have shared details of allegations because they would have wanted to prevent copycat stories. Stories like Linda Redgrave's. What happened in court was not finagling over details, it was exposing how Linda's story kept changing, because she made it up in the first place. Her story doesn't make sense, and Linda knew that. It didn't make sense because it wasn't true. No matter how hard Linda tries to fix her story, it will never make sense because everyone knows that Jian Ghomeshi suffers from anxiety and worked desperately hard to keep his private life out of the media for years. The last thing he's going to do is go around punching strangers in the head. And Linda was a stranger. He didn't like her. She annoyed him. He basically told her to fuck off. And that is why Linda was crying all the way home in the cab that night.